Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Welcome to the show today, Chester. So happy to have you on. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. I'm Matt Lilly, and this is Chester Elton.
Yeah, great to be here, Matt. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you on the show today. So we're going to dive into gratitude and appreciation today. That's, a big part of why we wanted you to come on the show, because I can't think of a more important time in at least in my lifetime and probably in your time, where gratitude and appreciation is so much needed.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because there's such I would say almost lack of it in the general sense of the media and social media, and just in the world. It seems like we're not as generous with kindness as maybe we used to be. And so it's great to have this subject to come in, and I'll even ask your perspective on that. I know you're an apostle, but if you were a regular human, being, what would you be seeing?
Well, first off, can I get an amen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think you're spot on when you talk about the fact that there's just such a lack of grace and kindness in the world right now. We seem to be so divided on so many different issues, right?
Right.
I've been reading a wonderful, actually, an audiobook that I highly recommend by a gentleman named Arthur Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
And the title would lead you to believe it's a religious book. It's not. It's called Love Your Enemies. He's actually an economist, also a very devout Catholic. And so he doesn't leave the spiritual side to the side.
Mm-hmm.
What he talks about, though, is that we've developed a culture of contempt. And the number one way you can tell if you're being treated with contempt is when you're talking to somebody and they roll their eyes, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's that Matt Lilly guy again. and so he says, we've got to get past that, where we listen and we debate. He says, debate is really important. And I'm a big believer of that. He makes a point that I'd never thought of before. He says, Pepsi never wants to put Coke out of business because Coke makes Pepsi better. Competition makes us better. Now, the point that will get to gratitude and kindness is, he says, so we counter contempt and we say, well, you need to be more tolerant. He says, think about that for a minute. If I said, how's your marriage going? And you said, my wife, she tolerates me. Right. An exciting time for a husband. Yeah, you'd say you immediately need to go to counseling. You know what I mean? There's something. So he says we've got to get to the point where we actually embrace different ideas. We embrace different people. We embrace a different way of getting to happiness, which is what we all want to get to. So how does gratitude and kindness play a role in that? Well, I've become a big fan of Buddhism. I'm a very devout Christian, but what I love about Buddhism is you can be a Christian Buddhist. You don't have to,
right. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to get off on trails, I can already tell. But Adyashanti wrote a book that, he's Buddhist, and he wrote a book about, I think it was called Resurrecting Christ or something about. And so he had talked about, he had the opposite experience, right? He went from being Buddhist, and then he really studied and dove into Christianity. And he said it was just it's a better experience. He's a better Christian a better Buddhist because he understood now what Christ was about. I was like, interesting how that works.
I think the foundation of every major religion that you can think of is love. It absolutely is.
Totally. Right. God is love, right? I mean, that's what
we preach.
That's what it is, right?
It's unfortunately not what we tend to live. It's what we believe, right?
Right.
So I read Jay Shetty's book, I Think Like a Monk, which I just adored. And by the way, he endorsed our book, Leading with Gratitude, which was
nice.
Just wonderful of him to do that. He said, in the Buddhist philosophy, every word that comes through your mouth needs to pass through 3 doors or 3 gates. And the first one is it true? Is what you're saying true? The second one, is it necessary? Which is also a great question to ask yourself. The third one is it kind?
Right.
So I'm big fan of trying to stay healthy, particularly as I'm getting older. And so I was at Stretch Lab today. That you go
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, they stretch you because we're too lazy to stretch ourselves, right? So,
yes.
Anyway,
this show brought to you by Stretch Lab at Stretch Lab.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In Summit, New Jersey. Go to the Stretch Lab.
In Summit, New Jersey. All right.
So here's the point. I'm talking to my stretchologist. I love that they call themselves that. And as we thought about it, I said, for example, I mean, you've got a friend, he gets married, they have a baby, and there's no question this is an ugly baby, right? And your friend comes and says, here's our baby. What do you think? So you go through those, you say, it's an ugly baby. Is that true? Yes. Is it necessary? No. It's the tell him that and is it kind?
Is it kind? No. Yeah,
So
of course not.
you say things like, wow, that's a baby. Good for you. And I think that so often, whether it's because we can do things anonymously on social media,
right,
or we're just in sound bites everywhere we go, we can say something that's cutting and cruel and drop the mic and walk away.
Right.
And we don't embark in any kind of conversation. So with Jay Shetty's book, there's a challenge there to develop your own personal mantra. And so I thought, well, I'm going to take that challenge. And so my mantra every morning, the Buddhist part of me that wakes up,
yes,
I say, be kind, be grateful, and be of service.
Right.
The family I grew up in, my grandpa, my father used to say, the only people you don't love are people you haven't served. When you serve someone, you get to know their story, you get to know where they come from, you're giving of yourself, they're giving back to you, right? And it's served me well, because it's so easy to wake up and say, oh, those people, whoever those people are in your life. And Arthur Brooks makes a great point where he says, look, we've gotten to the point in so many phases of our lives where if people don't agree with us, it's not just that they don't agree with us, they're bad people and they're stupid.
Right. And they're against us. I mean, I would even say they're against us. So we have to be against them, right?
Yeah. If you're not with us, you're
against us. Yeah. Right.
And he says, of course, that's clearly not true.
Right.
We've got friends all through the political spectrum that we love dearly. Do we agree with them on a lot of things? No, we don't.
Right.
And you know what? And that's great. Think how awful it would be if everybody agreed with everything you said every day. I mean, if everybody believed what you believe.
No. Now let's not go too far. I think if my wife agreed with everything that I said every day, I'm not thinking that's such a bad experience. I'm thinking I'm feeling pretty good. But I get what you're saying. Yeah. There's no growth in that. There's no growth in that.
Exactly. And there's the danger, right? When we have particularly business leaders where they've surrounded themselves with people that all they tell them is, you're a genius, you're brilliant, you're right. It's the emperor has no clothes. So this idea of, look, love your enemies. It's easy to love people that love you. I mean, if you're a Christian, that's the Christ sermon, right?
Right.
What benefit you if you love those that love you? There's no growth there. There's no. That's not noble. Of course you should.
Right.
It's loving your enemies and understanding where they come from, and they want to get where you want to go. They just want to get there a different way.
Right.
Because I honestly believe, at the end of all our stories, the one thing we all have in common is we want to be happy. And my definition of happiness is going to be different than yours. And you know what? That's good.
Right. Happy. And I would say I think, under happiness maybe is to be loved, to love and to be loved. Right. Because that's kind of in alignment with, God or the universe but Christ, definitely, right? To love and be loved. So,
and a great bumper sticker. You can put that right on a bumper
sticker. That's so funny. And so how do we, on the show, a lot of times we talk theory, but then we also talk practicality of how do we do that? Because it's easy to say that I should love my neighbors or love my enemies. In practice, that's obviously super challenging, or they wouldn't be my enemies, right? If I loved everyone, then they aren't my enemy. So how do we, give it, or do you have some examples in your own life of, or with clients that you worked with, of kind of that, here's kind of people in two opposite camps, and how did you get them to either bridge yourself to kind of have a deeper understanding of the other?
Yeah, listen, very insightful question. And I appreciate it very much, because I'm a big believer in knowing people's stories. You have a story, I have a story, and that story's precious to us. It's who we are. It's how we've become who we are.
Yeah, you could almost say it's exactly who we are, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we are the sum of the stories that we've been told or told ourselves, or the culture, right? I mean, we are a product of our environment, almost literally.
Yeah. And so once I know your story, I'm going to be a lot more open to understanding why you act the way you do, why you believe what you do, and what your rituals are. And I think particularly here in North America, where the population is so diverse, It's really interesting. We were on a wonderful holiday. That's the Canadian in me coming out, by the way. We don't go on vacation. We go on a holiday.
I like it, but it sounds so much more pleasant.
It,
Canadians
it,
are so
it
much more pleasant. I think Canadians do have a little bit I've never been to Canada, but the Canadians I have on the show are lovely people.
yes, and
So
they
holiday
are.
sounds so much, vacation sounds like a mandatory thing that you have to, like, I have to go get a colonoscopy. I have to take a vacation, right? But when I go on holiday, that just the word is happier, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just like, let's go on holiday.
let's go on a holiday.
A holiday.
Where are you going to holiday? Let me tell
Exactly.
you. Yeah.
Exactly. It seems like I should get Christmas presents right
Yeah.
off the bat.
So anyway, we went
Yes.
on this bike and boat trip in the
Oh,
Netherlands, which,
beautiful.
by the way,
Yeah.
it was a third time we've done it. They're
Oh,
amazing holidays where
okay.
you're on a boat. That's your hotel, and you go from city to city. And of course, in the Netherlands, there's canals everywhere. And then you cycle all day with a bunch of your friends. You go for a bike ride with your friends, and you've got a guide, and he takes you to various museums and tells you the different history. It was really interesting being in the Netherlands that it was fairly homogeneous. It really was. I mean, you could see the diversity. There were obviously Asian Dutch, and there were African Dutch and Caribbean Dutch and so on. But for the most part, it was fairly homogeneous.
Right.
In the States, gosh, you go to work, and I mean, I was at my beloved New Jersey Devils hockey game last night, and we've won 8 in a row, by the way, for those of you who go hockey. Yes, completely unexpected and beyond delightful. Well, what was really interesting is our starting goaltender with our 5 starting players were 6 different countries.
Oh, wow.
It was fascinating. I mean, there was a guy from Switzerland, a guy from Sweden, a guy from the US, a guy from Canada, a guy from the Czech Republic, and a guy from Canada. There you go. I knew there was a Canadian in there.
Right. Yeah.
And so, they all grew up differently. Now they all grew up with hockey. That's what they've got in common.
That's
and the
their
hockey
common
community
bond.
is very, very tight. The thing is different languages, different food, different culture, different traditions.
Right.
And so if you really want to understand people that you may not particularly agree with or even particularly like, know their stories, know their traditions. There's always 2 things you can talk about that are very safe.
Religion and politics.
And politics.
Right.
Yeah, no, you can talk about family and
Yeah.
you can talk about food.
Yep.
Everybody's
That's a good
proud
point.
of their food.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Everybody's
true.
proud of
Yeah.
their food.
I haven't thought about the food one. Family,
Yeah.
it's kind of a layup, but yeah, the food, that's interesting.
And we're business authors, so I always encourage leaders, say, look, ask the people on your team, if you're a new leader and you don't know the team particularly well, say, hey, where did you come from? How did you get here? What do you want to accomplish while you're here? And where do you want to be in 2 or 3 years?
Right.
Boy, if you know the answers to those 4 questions, you know a lot.
And I've taken lots of workshops and lots of leadership courses and stuff throughout my lifetime, but I was actually somebody that came on the show, and I can't remember which guest it was, but basically we were talking about, because they were an expert in kind of how to not do small talk, how to get into actual, because it's like everybody's tired of small talk.
Right.
So, but they were questions like you were talking about, which isn't what do you do for a living, right? Oh, okay. Because it turns on that part of the person's character. And so then they're kind of in the work mode, and it's, but if you're talking about the things you're talking about, family, food, where are you from? How'd you get here? Now these are conversation questions, right? So they're not just how are you and, how's your day and what do you do for a living? And
how about the weather? Yeah.
How about the weather? Yes.
How about those devils? That's actually a great conversation starter. But yeah, and to your point is, and then what's really, key to the whole process, as we would say in Canada,
yes,
is listen. Be a good listener. Ask good questions and listen.
And so
people love to tell you their stories. If I said, "Hey, Matt, tell me about how did you end up with this podcast? This is amazing."
Yeah, and that is an interesting story in and of itself. But we'll save that. You can interview me someday. Even though you are the guru of gratitude and the apostle of appreciation, I am sure that there's been some people that you did when you first met them. Maybe they weren't your people when you first met them, but then through your own technology, your own, you're an author, you write these books about how to do this. Do you have an example of, like, you don't have to give the person's name and email address, but kind of how you bridge some more difficult or conflictual type relationships?
Another great question. So let me tell you a little bit of my background that'll help you understand
Yes,
my
please
answer.
do. Yes, please do.
So I grew up with 4 older brothers, so 5
Hmm.
boys. I
Hmm.
always like to joke that I have 4 brothers, and each one of my brothers has 4 brothers. It's a huge family. Anyway,
Right.
um, in a ridiculously happy household. You know,
Oh,
my father and mother were married for 65 years, and my dad was as smitten and as in love with my mother in their 65th year of marriage as he was when they met in high school. I mean,
oh,
this
that's
is one of the
amazing
world's great
and
love
rare.
stories,
Amazing and
and,
rare.
and becoming more rare.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. In our family, we sort of have this philosophy that we've never met a stranger.
Hmm.
And because of that, when we meet people, even though they can be off putting,
Hmm.
our assumption is to assume positive intent.
Wow.
And so, and we talk about that in our book, Leading with Gratitude, assume
Hmm.
positive intent. You
Hmm.
know, when you meet somebody and they're really upset or they seem to be angry or whatever, there's a reason for that. And
Right.
there's probably a good reason for it,
Right.
right? They're having trouble with a kid, they got a speeding ticket,
Right.
whatever.
Hmm.
And so you treat them with a little bit of grace, and you treat them in assuming positive intent. One of the easiest ways to tamp down your anger and annoyance and your spirit of contempt is when people
Hmm.
are late for a meeting, like I was for our meeting today, by the way.
And you
Um,
notice how calm and poised I am.
you were wonderful. You were wonderful about it. And that is that there was probably a reason for that. And
Right.
in my case, it was for whatever reason, this never made
Technology.
it on my calendar. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And so it wasn't that I don't want to talk with you and have
Right.
this wonderful and enjoyable conversation that we're having. It just dropped off the end of the table for whatever reason. And so my point is that how do you turn it around? Well, I think it starts with your attitude going in.
Hmm.
And if you go in with the attitude of, I'm going to assume positive intent, I'm going to assume that I've never met a stranger. I'm going to assume that once we get to know each other, we will probably find enough in common that we will find it quite enjoyable, quite
Hmm.
delightful. And it is so interesting that you just say, hey, look, there's going to be things about this person that I'm not going to particularly care for, whether it's their,
Hmm.
their take on politics or their take on life or their take on raising their children or where,
Hmm.
parts of the country, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
The thing is that we've always got more in common than we think.
Hmm.
And we all love our food, we all love our
Right.
families, we all, at least I hope, we do.
Hmm.
And you find that common ground and you say, hey, this is a relationship that's worth investigating. This is a story that's worth hearing. And with my upbringing, that you've never met a stranger is everybody's story is worth knowing.
Hmm. So I'm going to tell a quick story then. I was at a business conference in Sydney, Australia, and it was 2 or 3,000 people from all over the world. It was for business leaders, and I ended up just randomly, you have on your, when you go to a conference, you got on your really great, here's my name and here's where I'm from, right? Like a big tag, like, so you see everybody else with the tags, and I was at the hotel I was staying, and I was just going through the breakfast buffet, or I think, or something, and there was another gentleman, and I can't remember if he asked me to sit down or I asked him, but it's one of those deals where you want to meet people, right? It's a
Sure.
social thing too. And so the two of us sit down. I'm from the States, he's from Iran, right? And it was one of those, and I don't remember the whole conversation, but the things we focus on were like family and, work to some degree, but really family. And the funny thing was, partway through that conversation, he said, I just want to be clear that as an Iranian, I don't hate Americans. And most of us in Iran don't hate Americans. In fact, if you really look at America's done a lot of great things for Iran, which is eliminating our enemies. We don't have to go to war. He was like, right? He was
the
like,
Americans will go kill all those guys.
yeah, exactly. He's like, the Americans will go do it. We don't have to do anything. We just stay inside our walls and we're good. And so we had a great breakfast and we had a nice talk. And I would have never had that experience had I not been traveling and been
Right.
open to other, how to, here's this person. He's just a person, right? But when I have found, just like you're saying, once you kind of get under whatever conflict may be on the surface, we're all human beings. We all have fears. It's just maybe around different things, right? Maybe I'm concerned that my family, supporting my family. Well, everybody, if they have a family, wants to make sure their family's taken care of for the most part, right? I mean, so there's certain common things that just are all there. But why is it so important if we've kind of come through this time of easy to isolate. I found that I went from being extroverted to introverted, which was still is a unique experience for me. So I became less social. But through that, why is it important to connect with people? Why is it important to do this? Why is it important to want to build these bridges with other cultures, with other people, with people that we would consider are, love your enemy. Why is it important for me to love my enemy?
Well, there are 100 reasons. And I'll give you, sort of my top 3 or 4. One is it keeps you safer. It's a safer place to be. Absolutely keeps you safe. You mentioned something, and I'm a huge believer that a big part of your education, and you should encourage your kids, is that is travel.
Right.
Go visit other countries.
Right.
It's the old Billy Joel song. The Russians love their kids too.
Yep.
I mean, they do.
Yep.
It's so interesting. I had some friends that were very, very, I want to say this in a kind way.
I can add color to it, so you can be kind to your friends.
Well, they didn't travel a lot.
Right.
And they were in a very homogeneous community in their part of the United States.
When you say homogeneous, you mean white, right?
Is that pretty much.
Okay. For everybody listening, I'll be the color man. That means white.
You can interpret, yeah. and we're very suspect, and by the way, with a lot of good reason, right? This is post 9/11 and
right. Yep.
And
yep.
Afghanistan and
right.
Iraq, and very suspect of Muslims.
Right.
Just in general, and it wasn't they were suspect of Iranians or Iraqis or Afghanis. They were suspect of Muslims. That's where they all fit.
Yep.
And so we worked together at a company, and I traveled quite extensively, and I traveled to Singapore, went to Malaysia, and had a stop off in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and I come back and they said, hey, so where you been? And so I named these things. Oh, well, did you feel safe? I said, have you ever been to Singapore? Singapore's like the safest place on the planet. I mean, you're safer in Singapore than you are getting locked in your local bank's vault. And they said, well, yeah, but Malaysia, that's a Muslim country.
Right.
Yeah. So is Dubai. So is Saudi Arabia. I said, you know what? I have to tell you, the most gracious hosts, the most wonderfully family-focused people. Now, I didn't meet them all.
Right.
Right. And they said, they invited me into their home to eat. The food was wonderful. The call to prayer 6 times a day, I found very affirming.
Right. Yep.
And was invited into my friend's mosque, and he said, "Look, you can just sit there, or you can participate." I said, "Look, I'm a joiner."
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And to have that experience, he goes, "Well, you're a Christian." I go, "Yeah. Look, I've got Jewish friends too, by the way.
Right.
I go to synagogue with them."
Right.
The idea of travel and spending time with different languages and different food and different cultures, and you come to the realization that you did with your experience in Sydney, Australia, that, you know what? We all love our kids. We all want to be safe. We all want to be happy. And the more we know about each other, the safer it is to have those conversations. That understanding goes up, kindness goes up, safety goes up. If we all stay in our silos and we've got people telling us, those people over there are your enemy, and you've never met them.
Right.
I go, now why are they my enemy? Well, because they believe differently than you do. Yeah, you got to give me more than that.
Right.
And so, again, it comes back to take the time, be curious. You want to be a great leader. You want to be just a better person. Be curious. And this is why your podcast, I'm sure, is so fulfilling for you, is you get to ask a lot of questions.
Yes, I do. Yes.
And then you get to listen to the answers, and then you get to chip in, your 2 cents.
Yeah.
And your take on Buddhism and travel and so on. It's very healthy, and we've got to understand that it's a healthy debate. I've never argued anybody into agreeing with me. I've never shouted anybody into agreement. It's never going to happen,
Right.
So rather than take that route, which clearly is a recipe for failure,
it doesn't work.
And say, well, tell me why. Why is that important to you? Why do you believe that way? And as they start to tell you about their upbringing, where they were in some of their life experience, you go, you know what? I get it. Not my experience. That was your experience. Like, I get how you got there. Would you consider this and this and this and this? And we slowly come out of our corners, and unlike boxers, so that we can, pummel each other, we come out of our corners and we come to greater understanding. And it all starts with, do I know your story? And a dialogue and curiosity, and more than anything, just listening. And that, by the way, is an incredible expression of gratitude.
Mm.
It just is.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I would ask you the question and then listen,
Right.
I think is an act of gratitude. By the way, one other title that I'd be remiss if I didn't share with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's always better when somebody else gives you the moniker or the nickname, right? You can't give yourself a nickname. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
We were at a conference and we were talking about working through anxiety at work, which is
One of your books.
book,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And how gratitude plays he goes, you know, it's like you're the Dalai Lama of workplace trauma.
You got all these great one-liners. The Dalai Lama of workplace trauma.
I mean, come on,
Yes.
that's very clever, right?
That is, yeah, that's super clever. You got to love the Dalai Lama.
Well,
He and I
who
share.
doesn't? Yeah.
He
And by the way,
I share a birthday. That's why. I mean, I have a special effect. I'm like, well, I've got to be special because I share a birthday with the Dalai Lama.
You know, it's so funny because I kept thinking there's something about him.
Yes, and he and I look a lot alike.
Absolutely. Now, by the way, back to
yes,
I'd like to call him my friend Arthur Brooks. We've never met, but I've now read 2 of his books and looking forward to the third.
Mm-hmm.
He is good friends with the Dalai Lama, which makes me so envious. You know, and before I die, I want to say, you know, my buddy, the Dalai Lama.
Yes.
Like I want to just pick up the phone and say, hey, Dolly, it's me. You know?
Right. I just wanted to say hello, goodbye.
Yeah.
Right.
How's it going? You know?
How's it going? How's your day?
He said, why do we love and revere the Dalai Lama?
Mm.
Now, if you know the Dalai Lama story, at 16 years old, China comes in, kicks him out of Tibet. They have no army. They have no way to defend themselves. And they clearly just wanted the natural resources and they expel them from Tibet.
Right.
Now, so what did
but didn't he have to sneak out in the middle of the night though? Didn't he have to escape? I mean, it wasn't just that they kicked him out. It was, they were going to kill him. I thought was the thing.
They were hunting him.
Yeah. And so he literally had to go in the dark, literally the dark of night and get out of the country for fear. And I think really it was his, the people around him that said, we got to get you out. And I think he may even had some resistance to leaving, but you know, they had to get him out for his own physical safety.
Sure. So here's the thing. So why do we revere the Dalai Lama? Now, when the Dalai Lama was exiled and ran for his life, did he try to raise an army to take the country back over? Did he cry foul? Did he call for other armies to come? I mean, was it death to the oppressors?
Right.
No, in fact, and I didn't know this about the Dalai Lama until I read this wonderful book by Arthur Brooks. He said the Dalai Lama starts every day in prayer. And the first thing he prays for is for the health and happiness and well-being of the Chinese people and their leaders. Now, come on. Now that is loving your enemy at a level that you and I will never get to. But we love him, and he's so revered, not because of his anger and his resentment, but because of his love. And see, that to me, when I read that, I thought, okay, now I get it. Like now I get it.
And isn't that the truth of any great hero in our, in our history? For any great hero, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. It's all about it's all about justice through love, not justice through retaliation, right? Or equality through love, not through retaliation. And so yeah, when you're talking about the Dalai Lama, that makes complete sense. It's again, how do we do that in our own personal lives? Because we don't have we can hate people in abstract, but in reality, when we actually are with the people in the way you're with the people, or talking about being with the people, it all kind of starts to melt. Even if it's just a little bit, it starts to melt, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's, well, I super don't like that guy, but you know what? I appreciate his passion, or I appreciate his XYZ, right?
Yeah,
you can always find something.
Exactly. And the point is it's just a better way to live, holding a lot of resentment, anger. It's one of the reasons that it's just so hard, I think, in most political discussions, is it immediately gets hostile.
Right.
And we've got to figure out a way to start with basic stuff and just say, hey, look, I think we all want the same thing. We want a good paying job. We want to be safe. We want to have decent health care. We want to be able to afford a good education. We want to make enough money that we can take a holiday. Right. And enjoy our lives and say, okay, now there are different philosophies on how to get there. And we can agree that some work and some have worked and some didn't work, and some, But if that's the goal,
Mhm.
and that's where we want to get, well, then let's figure out how we can work together to get there.
And the key to all messages is isolation is a leads to bad things. I'll just say it that way,
Yeah,
right?
it's very
I
toxic.
and when you most feel like isolating is when you most need to lean into any type of community. Well, I shouldn't say any, a supportive community or person, right? Just to kind of let the stress, anxiety, if somebody is feeling that, somebody's listening to the show today, what's the best advice you can give them, or what's the best direction or coaching you would give them if they're starting to feel like they're going to isolate or starting to feel like the world's against them?
Yeah,
What must they do?
go serve.
Mhm.
Just go do something kind.
Oh, nice.
Help your neighbor rake their leaves.
Right.
Take some cookies across the street.
Mhm.
You know, I'll tell you, I've got a ritual that I love. I wake up in the morning and I take a little quote of kindness or service or
Mhm.
something, and I text it to 28 people. I know that sounds crazy, but you're talking to the Apostle of Appreciation.
Right, right. You have to. This is
So
part of your
yeah,
mission, right?
and I'll tell you what it does for me, Matt, is
Mhm.
it's a little something that I can send to people that I really care about. I started it
Mhm.
with a cousin of mine who had a stroke.
Uh-huh.
And I said, you know, I know that there'll be this rush of goodwill and people will
Mhm.
bring food, and 2 weeks from now they're on with their lives. And
Right.
I
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
want you to
They
ever
moved on.
think that you're forgotten. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to send you a little message every day.
Mhm.
And he had some problems with his speech and stuff. I
Mhm.
didn't expect him to call me.
Right.
It's 2 years we've been doing this now.
Mhm.
And he said, hey, by the way, you can cut it back to once a week. I've got this great folder. I said, great.
Mhm.
Well, and then he had another stroke.
Oh gosh.
And I said, I know that you just, I'm going to go back to every day if that's okay. Well, I would tell friends about it. And I say, well, can you put me on the list?
Right.
And it's just such a lovely way for me to start the day, to send a little message to my friends
Mhm.
that, hey, I was thinking about you. I care about
Mhm.
you. You're in my prayers.
Mhm.
And here's a little something to brighten your day with a little challenge. And it's almost always, set a goal today to perform a random act of kindness and just see
Mhm.
if that doesn't make your day a little better.
Hmm.
And so, get out. Think less of, great leaders don't think less of themselves. They think about themselves less, and they think about their
Mm.
people more.
Mhm.
So think about somebody else. Get out of your mindset, woe is me,
Mhm.
and bake a batch of cookies. Send a handwritten note to somebody. Call somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time and say, hey, I was just thinking about you. How's it going? How
Mhm.
can I help?
Mhm.
I'm telling you, I think service is the roadmap to happiness.
Mm.
Be of
Love that.
service.
I love that. You've got so many great one-liners. We just need to capture them all and do like,
we
you just
got to
need to,
make bumper stickers.
well,
Like
you
more
just need
bumper
to text
stickers.
that every day. And I think you should expand your text message list. I think you should invite people in. I'm serious. I think you should invite, I know other, people do that, but I was like, I'll be on I was like, I want to be on that list. Right. So
Well, let's wrap up with this. And I'm so
yes,
glad you
yes.
brought that up,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Christy, who puts together my calendar,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
will say, Chester, I can't believe he gave you that opening. You didn't take it.
Right.
We publish a newsletter on LinkedIn twice a month
Uh-huh.
called the Gratitude Journal.
Uh-huh.
And people have opted in.
Mhm.
250,000 people have opted
Oh
in.
my gosh.
And
Wow.
and we highlight, friends that have written books. Like today, we dropped the newsletter today.
Mhm.
Aisha Bursell, who was a dear friend of mine, has written a
Mhm.
wonderful book, Design the Long Life You Love.
Hmm.
Like, we're going to live longer. We're
Yeah.
going to live into our 80s.
Yep. Yep.
Have we sat down and mapped that out? And
Right.
what's going to make that a meaningful and purposeful life? Well, along with the newsletter, we highlight like our podcasts and different stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
We just started. It's so funny you mentioned this. We just started. You can text gratitude to a number that's in there.
Mhm.
And once a week, I'll send you a gratitude text, a
I
weekly
love it.
gross of that gratitude from Chester Elton, and it's
I
free.
love it. See?
Yeah, there you
See?
go.
And I'm the one that requested. I didn't even know that existed. So where do
I
people
forgot about it. I'm so glad that
Well,
because we're just starting to launch it, right?
you are welcome. This is the world. This is
Thank
your
you.
environment saying yes. So how do people get on that list?
Just go to LinkedIn and follow me. You'll
A-
see
a-
the newsletter jump up, and then it'll you text gratitude and
Follow you on LinkedIn. Okay.
follow me on
I'm
LinkedIn.
writing this down. Follow you on LinkedIn, which is just Chester Elton, Elton.
Yep,
Is that right?
Chester Elton
On LinkedIn.
on
Okay.
LinkedIn, and everything's in that newsletter. We
And so
also have a wonderful website called thecultureworks.com where we have all
okay.
our other work. But LinkedIn really is a great place to find all the stuff we're doing now. I'm going to pull this up really quick.
I was going to say,
number.
yeah. Oh, perfect. That's even easier. Let's do that. Cause I was like, well, I've got to go to LinkedIn now. I've got to.
Right.
So yeah, what's the number?
For a dose of gratitude from Chester Elton, text the word gratitude to 908 460 2820.
2820.
That number again, 908-460-2820. Operators are standing
by.
It's just a lovely way to start your day. And we all need a little more kindness, a little more gratitude. You know, Adrian and I do a lot of executive coaching. And the way I start every coaching engagement is I'll say, look, we've got a formula and we've got a practice. And if you follow it and you're coachable, you'll be a better leader. I mean, you just will be. It's proven it'll work.
Right.
If that's all we do, we will have failed you. And they go, well, what do you mean by that? I said, I don't want to make you just a better leader. I want you to become the person that you want to be. I want you to be a better father, a better husband, a better partner.
Right.
And so I say, I want you to write this down, and this will be our mantra. And so I say, you got a pencil together. No success in business can ever compensate for failure in your home.
Right. Yep.
And you know, we spend so much time at work and we learn all these wonderful principles, then we forget to take them home. You know,
right.
Listening and teamwork and know your story.
Right.
Say, look, I don't want on my tombstone. This is a Stephen Covey thing, right? I don't want my tombstone to read, well, that guy had an amazing podcast.
right.
You know, he was a great friend. He was a great father. He was of service. He was kind. That's what you want on your tombstone, right?
Right. Made the world a better place. Right.
Exactly. There was a ripple effect there. And so all these principles and all these things that you do, you know, that's what we want to do. We want to create healthier and happier and safer communities, and, you know, children that aren't afraid, that are curious, that can travel, that can, you know, appreciate other cultures and so on. So
do you have a podcast as well then?
We do. Anxiety at work. We bring in all kinds of experts and counselors and business people, and how do they deal with their anxiety and so on. So, yeah. And by the way, subscribe to the newsletter. It's ridiculously positive. We have more fun with that thing, and everything you'd ever want to know or is in there. Our podcasts, our texting stuff, our gratitude practices, and it's all free. And I just love the comments. You know, we'll get, you know, 85,000 views and hundreds of comments and shares. I love it when you write an article and you've got, you know, 50 shares or 75.
Right.
Hey, I've got a cousin that could use this, you know.
Right. Totally.
And that's wonderful. And you know, it's just that drop of water. I have a little practice. I carry these little gratitude stones around with me.
Yeah.
And you know, I see somebody doing a great job, or, you know, the guy at the car wash, or the, you know, the dry cleaner, whatever. And I said, hey, listen, I know that, you know, people don't say thank you very much to your job, and I know it's a hard job, and I just want to know that I really do appreciate it. And this is a little token of gratitude from me to you. And then I always say, now, do you know why it's a stone? And they go, well, no, like it's stable, or it's, you know. I said, no, it's a stone because when you throw a stone into a pond, what happens to the water?
Oh, yeah. The ripple effect, right?
Ripples. I said, and that's the same with gratitude.
Oh, nice.
A little act of gratitude ripples. It just does. And so let's be that little stone. Let's be that little pebble. Let's be that ripple. And make somebody's life a little better today. Like this, hopefully this podcast.
Yes, totally. Well, thank you so much, Chester, for coming on today.
No, grateful for your time.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.